Hey, welcome to Thoughtseize Interviews, the show where we seize the thoughts of our guests while playing games of Magic the Gathering at the exact same time. I'm your host, Lucas Frank. That's Cole Smith, and today we are joined by DIIV bass player, singer-songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist, Colin Caulfield. Colin, hello.
Hello, Lucas. Hello, Colin. Thanks for having me.
Colin, are you familiar with Magic the Gathering at all?
Yes, I've been out of the game for a little while, but I would say I'm mostly familiar with how the game works.
Cool.
I actually like Cole and I started playing on tour a while ago. I feel like I got you back into it, and now you've really surpassed me.
That's true. I have surpassed you.
I've had some fun games against you too, Colin. I enjoy. You're a very deliberate player.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. So before, Colin, I definitely want to ask about your experience playing Magic, but I guess just for the viewers, before we start, just like a brief overview. So Magic the Gathering is a trading card game that was created in 1993. It was basically one of the first collectible trading card games, and it consists of two players who compete to defeat their opponent first by bringing their life total from 20 points to 0 points. And they do this by spending their mana to play creatures, spells, and other items and abilities. So, if you're curious about the game, whatever, if you want to learn more about the game of Magic from our perspective, we made a video this week that breaks down the specifics of Magic the Gathering, and hopefully will give our viewers an entry point and an understanding of the game. So if you want to watch this video,
featuring Dave Grohl.
Yeah, we had Dave Grohl. It sucked. His camera was just frozen the whole time, but he was there. So that's like down below on the Twitch channel and on our YouTube channel. So yeah, Colin, what's your experience been playing Magic?
Well, a few of my friends from back home in St. Paul, Minnesota, are longtime Magic the Gathering players, and I think it was just like one year I went home for the holidays, probably when we were living in New York, and they were all playing it, and I kind of just sat down and watched, and I was just a bit hooked immediately.
It happens.
Yeah. So
my memory of playing Magic with you, besides your very deliberate play style, is you played. You had a lot of like blue and red cards. So you had this kind of like blue-red stuff deck. Mm-hmm. So like I tried to, from memory, recreate that deck and like the spirit of the deck.
Yes.
So like cards I remember that you had were Young Pyromancer.
Yep, of course.
And Delver of Secrets, which is a little bit of a pet card of Lucas's and mine, and yours as well. So that's kind of the shell.
Unplayable in the current meta, by the way, but
interesting.
It's just can't let go.
Yeah. Colin,
I recognize all these cards except Sprite Dragon.
It's a new one.
I did not run Force of Negation.
Also a new card.
Oh, that's a new one. Okay, cool. But yeah, this is very similar to my previous deck, which is basically like a small spell Young Pyromancer token deck. And you wanted to flip the Delver of Secrets to get a 3/2. So it's pretty close, yeah.
Yeah,
we're missing Mystic Sanctuary, Cole. Did we forget that one?
So, with this deck, I really wanted to keep the spell count. The spells very cheap. So all of these are basically 1 mana spells, and as a result, we have a very low land count. And in order to preserve our life total, I have these Spirebluff Canals that aren't islands, and I have Fiery Islet for card draw in case we flood. So that's also not an island. So
True.
It winds up that we have not a lot of islands in play, even though Mystic Sanctuary works really well with Delver of Secrets. It just felt like it was more important to preserve the vibe of Colin's original deck. So in here, I tried to have a couple more. So I made a couple iterations of this deck. One for you. There's this card, Deceiver Exarch.
Cool.
Get it? Because your album's called Deceiver.
Yeah.
Because that's what the album's called.
And
it's really tight.
We had this card Bloodstained Mire because of our song Mire.
Nice.
But unfortunately, they were too bad to be played in the deck, and I really wanted to stick to your original.
What's the Deceiver Exarch do? Just curious.
It's we could actually play it later on because it's part of a deck that I personally
2-card combo.
Really love. It's a 2-card combo with this card over here, Kiki Jiki. So I think back in your day there was Splinter Twin, which was
right.
A pretty good combo deck, blue-red combo deck. So this is kind of like the like modern day version of it. So it basically this can untap any permanent, and this creates a copy by tapping it. So it copies Deceiver Exarch, untaps Kiki Jiki, which makes another one of these, and you just make an infinite number of these and kill your opponent. So cool. that has the Deceiver card, but unfortunately it didn't work. So what we have today is this card, Dive Down.
Nice.
So our band, for those who don't know, is called DIIV, and so we this is our spice card for you. And then
hexproof. Nice.
Hexproof. Yeah, it can protect our delvers. And then our first album is called Ocean, so we have these islands.
Nice. Very cool.
And this might be a stretch, but the front half of Delver of Secrets, as you can see here, and our card Snapcaster Mage are both humans, because we have a song called Human.
Nice.
So that's the spice for you today. So I say we just kick it off and play some games with this garbage deck.
Yeah.
Colin, you got some Young Man fans in chat.
Is there a chat? Is there a chat? I'm gonna pull up the chat.
Yeah, there's a chat. We got some Young Man fans. We got someone asking if we still own physical cards, which we do, and they're asking what our most valuable card is. Colin, do you still own? You sold your collection, right?
No. I didn't sell. I still have the deck that Cole bases off, or that you and Cole bases off somewhere. I think it's a little disassembled. And then I have a couple other things, but I don't think I had any like modern competitive decks. This was the closest, and this was like low tier,
For sure. You played Dredge though too, right?
Well, I played. So when I first, for people watching, maybe we're in modern, right?
Yep.
There's different like formats that are basically just dictate what cards you can use. Standard is like the most recent 3 sets or something. Modern is like everything since when 2000.
It's the last 15 years, yeah. And this is the set that I think, or this is what you introduced me to, and this is where I feel personally most comfortable.
One thing I didn't know about Magic when I first started was that there were like competitive decks that people play. I thought everyone built their own deck. And so when I first started, I found this dredge mechanic, which basically like returns things from your graveyard once they've died. And I was like, I really like that. So I tried to build my own brew. So that's what I have. I don't have like a competitive dredge deck. Yeah, I just have my
That's even cooler though.
Yeah.
People in chat are asking why we're not playing Arena, but we're kind of switching back and forth between MTGO and Arena just so that we can have some variety.
I also think that when we want to build these decks that are like suited to our opponents, the reason, in MTGO you can just buy the cards that you need, but in Arena you have to earn them, and we're not trying to earn anything.
True. Right.
Colin, are you aware that I friend requested and DM'd every single member of your family in preparation for this interview, and I heard back from none of them?
Wow.
Or was accepted by none of them. Bill, Liam, Moira, and Shelby. Shelby, right?
Michelle.
Okay.
Michelle.
Well, her Instagram thing is like Shelb.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think if you know, you wouldn't have known this because his profile is private, I think, but my dad has never posted
I saw
done anything.
Zero posts. It said at the top.
My mom barely uses it. My brother doesn't use it much. My sister's on there, but she basically just posts pictures of her dogs. That's it.
So yeah, I wasn't able to get through to any of them. Please let them know that I still would like to speak with all of them if I ever do
Nice.
hear back. But I really wanted to go back to the humble beginnings of Colin Caulfield for this interview.
Sure.
And talk about you early on were kind of on the YouTube scene, right? You were making a bunch of YouTube covers and stuff. Tell us about that period in your life.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I was in college. I went to school in Chicago at Loyola, and I played drums up until that point. And then when I moved to Chicago, didn't have a drum set, so I started playing piano and guitar, just like teaching myself. And then I don't know why I started like recording things. I had recorded things with friends when I was younger, but I think I was just really bored. And probably just didn't want to deal with like meeting people and stuff at school. So I just like started recording covers, and then I don't know what brought me or gave me the confidence to just like post these like pretty cringe covers. Even if the music was interesting, just like it would be like me, just my face like this close, like with the guitar singing. It's hell of awkward.
I don't know.
But
some
that
of them
was
had like a cool aesthetic. You did like multiple angles, so you'd be like you playing the organ.
Yeah, no, I got a little bit more creative, and that one, which was Cole's referring to this deer hunter cover that I did, because I was just putting stuff out, and like I was on MySpace talking to people and different musicians, sending things back and forth, and then just like there's like a little bit of like a YouTube community, and I was part of this like animal collective.
Bolt it, you fuck.
All right.
Oh yeah,
You're
get
part
the
of
noble
this
hierarchy.
You want to get your threat down sometimes. They're not doing anything good. But okay.
Yeah, I was obsessed with Animal Collective at the time, and they had this really like vibrant message board called Collected Animals. Like a bunch of people posted their own music there, so I think that's what I was into. And I was like posting that, and then Bradford Cox from Deer Hunter like blogged about this cover that I did. It was like really complimentary, and then like
he said it was better than the original, right?
Yeah, he did say that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then like overnight, all of a sudden, I was like a real musician or something. But it definitely, it's really funny to think about it now, because like I was going to school, and like not until like a couple years into doing it was I like, oh, I should actually try to be a musician. I was just like basically like writing lyrics and like drifting off in class, and then going and recording, and still doing homework and shit.
And did that directly or indirectly kind of lead to Young Man?
Yeah, that's what I was doing like during the beginning of. I'm trying to think of what the first Young Man song was. But I feel like when I started to learn guitar, especially, there was like a sound happening with like all of a sudden the songs that I was making started to sound similar. And then I made like an EP at first, this little like concept album about like youth, which is very not trendy, but very much a common theme at the time. There were so many young bands, bands with young in their name, talking about what it's like to like grow up. Very be borderline basic, but yeah, that's what I was doing. And then
Lucas doesn't know what it's like to grow up, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's still a child.
Puberty's gonna be great. I can't wait.
But yeah, I don't know. I think there was just a certain point where, like, this is often how it goes, where like there were enough songs that sounded similar where I was like, oh, I could just like make this a release or something.
And for those who don't know about Young Man in chat, that was Colin's band before DIIV, and that primarily in Chicago, or did you guys keep going in New York?
No. It stopped by that time, but
Okay.
I forgot to mention that I was studying abroad in Paris when I was a junior, and that's when I got like signed and stuff started. So I actually played my first shows ever in Paris. Like
I was going to ask about the Europe tours and stuff.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't even at that point. It wasn't even a tour because I was just living there.
I see.
We ended up going back afterward. I think Young Man was like a somewhat legitimate band. We didn't really have much success, but we did tours and went to Europe like 4 or 5 times, I think. And
your tours of I think like a lot of musicians, you really did pay your dues, but not I think unlike some musicians as well, but you really did pay your dues. I think some of your European tour stories from the early days of Young Man and stuff are really funny and just have this like just this sense of like everything going wrong at all times.
Yeah.
Can you give us one of those?
I mean, like, I think the first time we went to Paris as like a band, there were some like showcase shows in London and Paris. It was like a big deal. And like my drummer at the time, Dylan, God bless him for this, but we had like a layover in Toronto or something and ended up missing our connecting flight. Not our fault, but we were like sprinting to the connecting flight, missed it, type of thing where they closed the door and then like, oh, we can't open it again. And so we had to spend the night in the airport, and we were like so young at that time, like 19 or 20, very wide-eyed. And then we slept all night on the like hard floor, and then went to the check-in desk the next morning, and like Dylan couldn't find his passport because it had like flung out of his bag when we were running. And so he was trying to find it, and he was such like a really, really responsible, organized person, This stuff like this never happened to him, and it like shook him. He was like, I don't know. And we had to leave him. And then he ended up finding it after like walking around the airport with his like luggage for hours, miserable, asking everyone, finds it, gets on a plane, comes, and then just gets like an unbelievably bad flu for all of the shows that we did. And I mean, like almost everyone has this type of story from touring, especially abroad, because you kind of just like get on a plane and like kind of cross your fingers and hope that it works, especially like before your band is big enough to have like a real liaison at the airport when you arrive and shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just like a little bit of adventuring.
And I think your band, like early stories, have this like real sense of wholesomeness or something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the stories are relatable and like but they're not like dark, they're just like funny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were like Midwestern boys,
Right.
Like all had like good relationships with our families and stuff. And we're all going to school. We were like doing the responsible thing, but then also like taking time off to go tour and shit like that. So I think it just like instilled like, a little bit of, or a lot of bit of innocence throughout. And then because even when I moved to New York, I was just like, I see pictures now, I look so wholesome and innocent,
Yeah, that's why I really wanted to get in touch with Bill and Michelle.
Yeah, you should have just asked me.
No, that wouldn't have been the same.
Yeah, true.
But let them know I'm still interested. But your dad was like, speaking of Bill, he's a big music fan, right? Like would he take you to shows and stuff when you were a kid?
I was gonna ask that same question.
Yeah, we'd go to shows. Took me to, there's this band from Twin Cities named the Jayhawks. They're like a country bluegrass band kind of, but like really good songs. Went to see a bunch of those shows. I went and saw Prince at the XL Energy Center. But more than anything, he just like, there was just always like music and records around, and he was going to shows even when I was a kid. Yeah. So like I would see him go. So as soon as any of my friends were like, hey, we should go to this concert, I was like immediately on board. you know?
Totally. I wanted to also ask some so then you go from Chicago, you go from Minnesota to Chicago to New York.
Yeah.
Talk about the decision to move to New York?
That was like exclusively, I moved back to St. Paul after Chicago just for like 3 months. And I was kind of like, well, that's that a little bit, you know, in terms of being a musician. But I was still playing music. I was like playing drums in this prog band there and one other band, just hanging out. But then Cole just sent me an email like out of the blue, like asking if I knew anyone. But then like
classic trick.
Yeah.
Knew anyone
to play like synth and like some guitar and sing backing vocals in DIIV.
Mm-hmm.
But then, yeah, like minutes later it was just like, actually you want to do it, lol, or something. And then, yeah, I was like, that was a really like crazy, like not coincidence, but just the timing of Cole asking me to do that was so strange because I was like ultra depressed, like not just like my band like ended or whatever, but also I was like out of college and I had like, studied English, and looking back now, I like mostly studied music. I took a couple music classes, but like the majority of my time when I was in college was like me getting good at music or whatever. So after college, when I was like, oh, do I get a real job now? It was like really like, shocking time. And then, Cole just had a classic
graduate situation.
Exactly. And then, so then to get that email, I was kind of just like, what? Because Cole and I didn't even know each other all that well. Like we hit it off because he played a show in another band. When I was in Young Man, we played in Chicago at this venue called Shuba's. And afterward, we just like started talking, I think because Cole, you like the guitar stuff in my band. But then it turns out Cole lived in Minneapolis for a while. So we just had a bunch of stuff to talk about. And then we hung out like maybe 1 or 2 other times. So it's not like we were like close friends or something.
But I think the part that you're leaving out of the story is that I was a big fan of your band. I really was impressed by the live set and by the band. And you guys did a Day Trotter session, I remember back in the day, that I loved.
Cool.
So I don't know. I feel like that's relevant. I wasn't just like emailing random people.
Yeah, I should say too, if anyone goes to listen, like the live stuff that we did was like way different because we were all like into like technical shit. A couple of the dudes in the band were like, I think they were actually music major or music minors. And after each show we would get like obsessed with like listening back and like trying to do different things each time. So like there are all these like intricate aspects of the live show, especially with like guitar work and like rhythmic stuff. So it's definitely different than the recorded stuff, but yeah. So that's why I moved to New York.
Ooh, wow, casting a dive down.
To cast the dive down. The opponent is going to be mad.
Oh, dive down.
The
opponent is just
oh
like,
shit.
Ouch.
They got us.
The opponent is just like, what are these cards?
We got some people in chat saying First Ave is OP and that First Ave needs a nerf.
Oh, that's Eric. I see that.
And that Live Nation is warping the meta.
Oh my god.
Which is pretty strong.
Live Nation, that's Ben. Live Nation has officially warped the meta. These are actually my Magic friends from back home are in the chat right now.
That's awesome.
Brosef and Nexus V333.
Very cool.
Oh, I guess that's Nexus Heart. Is that supposed to be Heart? No, V333. Okay.
And then Fat Baby is Danny.
Oh, Fat Baby's in the chat too. Cool.
Lost 3 forms of ID of increasing importance 3 nights in a row at first half from Fat Baby.
We should say too that Danny, Cole's wife, is from Minneapolis.
Yep.
And I almost positive we never met when we both lived there, but I'm pretty sure that I went to a show at this venue called the Medusa when Danny was working door there. So
very sick.
Yeah. R.I.P. Medusa.
Shout out
Worlds collide.
Shout out to Danny.
Yeah.
So you hitched your wagon to Zachary Cole Smith, and moved to New York, and then you started working at a music venue there, right?
In New York?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I worked at this bar called Skytown first, which was like right at Myrtle Broadway, which is like another, yeah. The fact that I moved to New York and also moved to this intersection is like very strange, just because like so many of my like friends and like the shows and things that I was exposed to are directly a result of like living there, which makes sense. But yeah, for people that don't know, Myrtle Broadway is this like intersection in Bushwick, and then it also kind of borders Bed-Stuy. And there are a bunch of bars and like music venues, and yeah, one of the venues, Palisades, I ended up like working tending bar there every now and then because I was friends with the people who ran it.
And how long were you in New York?
I think like a little over 5 years or something.
It's a long time.
Long enough. That's what I'll say.
Long enough.
I feel like that's the answer that everyone could give. Anyone who leaves New York could say long enough, and it would be applicable, kind of.
Because you're in LA now. It's going to ask you to give a New York versus LA. One of those.
Yeah. My friend actually had a viral tweet the other day that was LA is boring heaven and NYC is fun hell. Which is kind of how's my light looking right now? Am I a bit pink?
It's cool looking.
Yeah, but it's good.
You sure? Okay.
Yeah.
What was the question that you want me to give a little LA versus New York?
Yeah, or just in your opinion.
Yeah, I mean like me talking shit on New York or whatever is only because it's like fun to talk shit on or whatever, but also because like I'm so glad that I lived there. I'm like unbelievably grateful that I lived there, especially at that time when there was like so many music venues and cool shit happening. Like it was really crazy how many people lived there and like how much stuff there was to do. There was just a point where it was like, New York like takes a toll on your like spirit and body. Yeah. I was like, I wasn't even like an insane party dude or anything, but I still like was out every night and I was bartending, so I wasn't sleeping at all. I was like drinking way more than I'm like comfortable drinking, And
I've never really seen you like fully drunk, Colin. I kind of want to.
I'm extremely careful about that not happening because I have like a really visceral thing when someone gets like too drunk around me. I think it's from it's annoying, but I think my dad when I was younger was like, he made me aware of like what an alcoholic was like from like a really young age. And so I was always like hyper aware of it, especially with like adults. When adults would get too drunk, I would just be like, you're acting a fool right now. So I think I had this like real hesitation to ever be like that, which isn't to say that I have never,
Right.
But I'm pretty careful. I just like have a good sense of like when to stop,
Right. Cole, Danny says well played.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. We got there. We're 2 for 2. I got to say we're doing pretty good with this Colin deck. Maybe we're onto something.
We're 2-0, baby. 2. That's crazy.
Yeah. Really
Wait,
strong.
what type of decks have you played so far?
We played for Phoebe. We played like a skeleton themed
with my deck.
Against. Oh, okay. We played against a blue-black control deck, and what was the first deck?
The first one was kind of this janky deck where you play a bunch of walls, and then you play a card that allows your walls to deal combat damage based on their toughness rather than their power.
It's really stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, let's play a competitive one. We're going in. We're paying the money, and we're
wow.
Going in.
Okay. Cool.
But Colin, you were studying music at school, but you're an English major. Because I think of you musically as like jack of all trades guy. Like you're very well rounded, and you can play a bunch of different instruments. You can play a bunch of different roles in bands. And in DIIV, I think of your role as kind of as that guy who jumps around from space to space to space, kind of dipping into every little part of the band and kind of shoring things up in that way. You're singing and playing, you're singing harmonies, playing bass, you're contributing on the songwriting side of things. So you started with drums.
Yeah.
When did you start moving over to melodic instruments?
In like right when I started college. I think really like within the first semester, definitely I just like found a piano like in the like first floor meeting room of the dorm across the street. And I would just kind of sneak in there and like play piano like all the time. I got like really obsessed with piano, even though I didn't know what I was doing, like at all. I was really into this band, the Fiery Furnaces, in high school, and then I got really into Philip Glass. And I think those two entry points, it was like a really fortuitous way to start learning piano, learning those type of songs, because they're so accessible.
Super simple.
And they involve like very simple things, not always simple with Philip Glass, but usually very simple things with your left hand and then like playing a melody over it or an alternating pattern or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just got obsessed. Like I was like learning shit off YouTube and just like sitting there and just playing for so long. And yeah, it was very like, looking back, it's so funny because I just have these like isolated memories of being in college or whatever. So it's funny to think of, I would just like go over there and play like for 5 hours, you know? Like everyone else was like hanging out.
No, I think it's important for pretty much every artist to have that incubation period where you're kind of where you're really honing your craft.
Yeah. It's true though.
Yeah. But,
don't laugh, Cole. Don't fucking laugh. I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah, should we ask Danny's wondering if we should ask our opponent if they've heard of DIIV.
If they know Colin. Have you heard of DIIV? And specifically Colin Caulfield.
I'd be really curious because I've watched a lot of like streamers of different competitive card games, and they rarely have good music taste. It's almost always like
it's true.
Kind of faceless electronic music that they're listening to.
Okay, so you're in a big Hearthstone phase right now.
Yeah, correct.
We need to ask Danny with Fat Baby specifically requested that they know Colin Caulfield. And if they refuse to respond, then stop playing the game, Cole.
Okay.
Brian says they usually play Tool. Not even that, man. It's like it's worse than that. They play.
It's like.
Yeah. So you're in a big Hearthstone phase right now. You just reached whatever it's called.
Legend.
Do you want to talk about that? I have not. Who is it? Our opponent's name is I Can't Read. So
I like that name. Yeah, I got into Hearthstone via the same friends, Broseph and Nexus V333.
Feel a little betrayed. That's all right.
What, that I started playing Hearthstone?
Yeah, instead of Magic.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Hearthstone is similar to this game, but it's paperless. So it's like only online, and it's like all based off the World of Warcraft lore, which is like a massively multiplayer or role-playing game or whatever.
Oh, I didn't know that.
All the cards are references to WoW, and all the heroes that you play are also heroes. But I never played that game actually. I just got into it because it's very similar to Magic. Certain details are different. Like you have 30 life total instead. You draw on turn 1 in Hearthstone, which is pretty crazy. But
unbelievable.
Yeah. It's a very different game. It's much more like fun and like zany and exciting because since it's paperless, like they're able to do so many things with the game mechanics that you can't do in Magic, specifically with like RNG, like random events where like you throw a 1-cost creature, or they call them minions in Hearthstone. You throw a 1-cost minion out, and it randomly generates a card for you to use. And there's a ton of mechanics like that, so there's a lot more chance. And yeah, it's just a very different vibe, despite being very similar.
Yeah, everyone I know who plays it is big into it. But I've heard that there's a lower ceiling in Magic. I mean, in Hearthstone than in Magic, meaning it's not quite as deep. Is that some? Oh, damn! Our opponent said, expletive. That's some pretty chill music.
He said they censored. I guess he said damn, or she or they said damn. Yeah.
That's tight. Ask their opinion on.
Does it have a?
They gave their opinion.
Lower ceiling.
Yeah, in the sense that it's kind of that it doesn't have as much replay value. It's not quite as deep. I mean, it's a newer game, so that's sort of inevitable, I guess. And
to be honest, in certain ways, I think it's like it's more difficult than Magic.
Interesting.
The knowledge that you're responsible for having, and the way, since there's so much more random, there's a much more random nature to the game. Like, you have to be like prepared for like a huge variety of like situations. But then certain decks kind of play themselves, and then also like climbing the ladder, which is what I did to get to Legend or whatever, involves like a lot of like monotonous like just games where it's like you start and like the opponent wins, and you're like, well, there's literally nothing I could do about that, which is similar to Magic. But I don't know, I guess like I'm trying to find like a good way to like compare the two. But yeah, I guess Hearthstone is much more of like a leisure game. There's like a reason that it's like a computer game, you know?
Right.
It's like a Hearthstone is a video game much more than Magic the Gathering is anything but a card game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. Brian says Lucas is fuming right now. He is absolutely losing his shit. All Brian's comments are always all caps. Yeah, I think that's. I've also heard that they've found ways to improve on Magic, which is interesting too.
Not possible.
And that it's simplified. It's a little more enjoyable in different ways, but
well, yeah, like Hearthstone does not have like a stack in the same way that Magic the Gathering has. Like, I'm not explaining this to you, I'm just saying it out loud, but this thing called the stack, where like an action takes place, and then any action that comes after it has like differing types of priority, and things get stacked up on top of each other. Yeah, when you play different cards, and then as soon as you or your opponent are unable to play any more cards that you don't want to, the stack resolves, and all of those things take place in a determined order based on rules of card types and stuff.
There's sort of timing to things.
Yeah, and Hearthstone just like doesn't really have that. Like, you do something and it happens, and there are certain mechanics where like it'll happen in response to something else, but you can't do anything on your opponent's turn. So because of that, like, it's just much more of like a back and forth experience.
Cole, I think we should move the you're blocking the opponent's life total, which I think is kind of a problem. I think you could move it over to the right side, over the
true.
The action. You can move it over the game actions, the log. That might cover Colin's face. But yeah, move it.
I can't believe, Cole, that you left I Can't Read hanging after he or they went to listen to DIIV.
Yeah, you should let them know that you
should just say like, yeah, it's pretty cool.
You should ask them to check out Thoughtseize interviews. Also, Colin, if our opponent casts Thoughtseize, we Venmo you $5.
I heard about this, yeah.
And then if we counter it, or if they whiff on Thoughtseize, meaning if we have no cards for them to take, you lose the $5 gets taken out of your pool.
Okay,
I never heard that rule.
I added it today. I texted you about it.
You just mentioned Philip Glass, and I feel like it would be cool. Maybe we could just do round one of our segment, of our special little segment.
Sure, you want to do it now? I have a couple more questions for him.
Okay, yeah, go for it. Cause I'm gonna sideboard here.
Okay, cool. So, Colin, I want to move into some more personal stories. You had a long flowing mane for many years. But maybe what was it, a year, 2 years ago, you decided to shave the whole thing off. What was talk about the story that led to this decision?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, a lot of people who grow their hair very long, at a certain point, an event will trigger the cutting of that hair.
True.
And sometimes
it's like a triggered ability.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like Young Pyromancer makes a token.
I had just moved to LA, and like a factor that I leave out of this story oftentimes is that LA is just really hot, especially during the summertime. And I think I moved there during the summertime, so hot, and all that hair was really like overwhelming. I had like a serious amount of hair. It was like a Pantene Pro V commercial, and
really were.
Yeah, and I was going to these parties as you do when you like move to LA, because it's like, if you're up for it, like you just find yourself at these weird like parties with celebrities and stuff. It's like not a good vibe after a while, but when you first move here, it's like exciting. So I was still doing that, and I went to this comedian's birthday party or something like that, and I was there, and I had a man bun because the hair was so long I had to have it up. And I was in the hot tub, and Jeff Garland from Curb Your Enthusiasm walked by. I saw him walk by, and I was like, holy shit, that's Jeff. I love that dude. I was so stoked. I love that show. I always have. And anyway, the party ended. I go home. Many, many days later, he's on Joe Rogan, and they're talking about how he doesn't like to go out anymore. Because it's all just like a bunch of young people and dudes with man buns running around. And he cited that specific party, and he referred exactly to me as the moment that he saw this dude with a man bun, and he was like, fuck this, I'm getting out of here, and he left the party. And I was like, that's it. And I cut my hair off the next day. I cut it all off. But I mean, it was so
unfair.
No, I guess I don't think I was the stereotypical like man bun wearer,
No.
like earthy hipster or whatever. I wasn't that. It was out of necessity. But still, yeah, it stung. And also it's kind of one of those things where like the universe sends you a sign. And you're like, I think it's time to cut the hair now.
And then you showed up. Danny and I were selling clothes at junior high. You showed up. You're like, I think I'm gonna buzz my head, and we were like, whoa, that's crazy. And then it kind of triggered a thing where we just, well, except for Bailey, but we all just buzzed our heads.
Yeah, which was it felt like there was that story with Jeff Garland or whatever, which was funny, but also it was like kind of like us all moving to LA for the most part and like turning a new leaf kind of as a band and as friends, etc., a bunch of different things. So it made sense to kind of just like hit the reset button or something, try something new, because we were like long-haired band for so long.
And you saw that I had shaved my head, and you just
you did it too.
Inspired.
You did it. Yeah, that's true. I always look to you, Lucas.
I know that. I know that about you. I think it's a really liberating feeling to shave one's head. It feels so nice.
Yeah, I did it at my friend's house. He has a pool, and I jumped in the pool afterward, and I felt like a dolphin. I just slipped into the water. It was really crazy. Yeah.
Colin Dolphin Caulfield.
Yeah, that's right.
Dolphin Caulfield.
That's a really strong LA story. As sort of, I grew up in LA, and I feel like I have, because of that, I definitely have a skewed perspective of it. Mm-hmm. But I heard someone say the other day, it was Joanna Newsom, actually, in an interview, said that the misconception about LA is that it's not one place, it's many different places. It's hundreds of places, and that people come and they go to one place and they're like, oh, this isn't for me, or this is trash, this is corny and bad. what has your experience in LA been versus what your expectations of the place were like? And had you been to LA much touring before and that sort of thing?
Well, I was like fortunate. I mean, it was part of the reason why I was so willing to move here was like I had been to LA so many times leading up to moving here just from touring. And like the first 7 times I came, I hated it.
Same.
Because I just like, you know, I was like staying either like downtown or like in the arts district or whatever. And it was like cool, but just not for me. Totally different vibe. And then, you know, after a certain amount of time, I think a few of my friends moved here. And so I like went and stayed with one, and she lived in Echo Park, like in the hills of Echo Park, like behind Lassen's or whatever. And I was just like so blown away by how beautiful and cool it was. And I was also like, in my mind, I definitely like had a limited understanding of what LA could be. I had thought of like, oh, there's like Beverly Hills and like Malibu and then downtown, you know?
Right.
And as an extension of that kind of thought was that like the only place you could find really beautiful residential areas was in like Beverly Hills or something.
Sure.
You know, or up in like Laurel Canyon.
Where it's just totally inaccessible.
Yeah, completely inaccessible. So when I saw that, I was like, holy shit, I would definitely live here. It's like outdoors. It's like really beautiful. Like, you know, it really like shifted the way I understood the city. So when I came, I was like, I had a really open mind. And I was excited to like explore. Also, I should say like before I moved here, we did Is the Azar, and Andrew and I drove out to help Cole with like demos and stuff.
Andrew, guitarist of DIIV.
Yeah, Andrew, guitarist of DIIV.
Is that his real name?
We call him Bailey. Andrew.
Andrew Bailey.
We went out to LA and we spent a bunch of time in like Lincoln Heights, like living in like an artist warehouse. It's and also living like in this unbelievably small room together at this Airbnb downtown.
Talk about coming to Lincoln Heights. I like that story about you and Bailey arriving in Lincoln Heights at that warehouse.
Yeah, so we like this was like at a time when like DIIV was like considerably more disorganized, and just like chaotic. So like Bailey and I drove all the way out to LA, under the impression that we had a place to stay. And to Cole's credit, we were supposed to have a place to stay. Like they told Cole that we could stay at this artist space that we were like renting to practice. But it was really just like the like landlord or the person who was renting it out was like pulling a fast one on like everyone involved, because we showed up after like a 4-day drive across the country or something. Like it was like grueling fun, but we were like so tired, we were like ready to go to bed. And we walked into this like warehouse with all our bags and stuff. And we just opened the door, and it was like a bunch of people, like working on shit
working.
In like a quiet room. And our room was
supposed to be your practice space.
Yeah, and like
living space.
Our room was like next over. You had to like cross this like doorway, but like in order to get there, you had to walk by all these people, and they were just like, "Hello," like, and we were like, "Hey, what's up? Yeah, we're renting that place next door." And they were like, "Cool." And then they like looked at their sleeping bags and stuff, and they're like, "You can't stay here." And we were both like,
"No, I know. No, for sure."
No, not even. We were like, we were told we could stay here. Like, we literally have nowhere to go.
And to be fair to myself, I found the place on Airbnb.
Yeah, no. Like, you did everything right. Like, we were supposed to be able to like stay there. When I say it was disorganized, I don't mean that it was anyone's fault at that time. There was just hectic shit like that would happen all the time, you know? And so, yeah, we ended up like staying there that night after like begging. And then we hid and slept behind couches like many, many nights at this place while we were making that album. And these people would like open the door, and Bailey and I
bathroom was in our room. Yeah.
These people would open the door, and Bailey and I would get like really quiet and just like stay very still behind the couches while they go to the bathroom. It's horrible. But like now, it's a very funny story, and I can laugh about it now for sure.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think it's important to tell stories like that too, because people think I've been in bands or projects and doing stuff like that, and people be like, so nice to see you like doing so well, man. Like the band's doing great, and like, you know, you're out there living the dream, and you're like, musicians are still doing stuff like this when you're in a band that's doing perfectly fine, you know.
Yeah, like I was like very popular at that by that time, you know,
more
what I mean?
than
Like,
perfectly fine.
yeah, but it's just like, yeah, I mean, it's like you start a band and you're like kind of just like figuring things out, and because of that, like every facet of the band is also getting figured out. So all these like things go wrong, or like you learn from your mistakes, and that applies to like where you stay. That's why like going to Europe, for example, can be so disastrous, because you can just like plan incorrectly, and then you're like in the middle of nowhere in another country.
Did you ever have the experience of being a young person growing up, you know, in the early 2000s, and people saying to you like some old guy saying to you like, tough time to be in the music industry, like that kind of thing?
A little. Yeah, for sure. I think more so when I had Young Man, because it was like mildly successful, but not like financially, you know? And so like, even though like my parents were very much like, if you finish college, we'll never have a say in like what you do with your life. We'll always be supportive of you being a musician and stuff. So I ended up finishing, and they really kept their word on that, and they're like very supportive of me being a musician. But with DIIV, it was much easier because I moved out to New York to like join like an established band, and like the first thing we did, we like went around the world, you know?
Yeah.
We like did a tour around the whole world. So it was kind of just like anyone who was coming to me being like, you should get out of there and, you know, get a real job. At that point, it was like, all right, like what is wrong with your brain, you know? But it's funny, before I moved to back home, the very last Young Man tour, which like lost a bunch of money, and like it was the last one, it kind of like broke the band, which is so often happens on like failing tours at the end of a band's life or whatever. Right before, I was working in Chicago at this startup as like a hair loss restoration surgery salesman. I was like selling, yeah. I was like connecting people to doctors, you know, and the like owner or like boss of the startup or whatever, named Steve, when I had to go on tour, he tried to convince me to like quit music and commit myself full time to this job. And he offered me like a huge raise. And he said, sometimes, Colin, you have to know when to like give up on your dreams. He's like said that exact thing.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm good. I'm going to go do this. And then of course I go on this tour and it fails. And that was part of what sent me into like, what the fuck am I doing? But yeah, I feel like, you know, the kind of idea that like you're doing the wrong thing, or what you're doing isn't responsible, or you could be planning for your future better. I feel like that's like a pitfall that people fall into with any profession. It's just like very exaggerated with being an artist, because there's so much unknown at the beginning.
Totally.
You know,
but even from other musicians, I mean, I think that I would get, as a young person coming up, from like a lot of guys who were working in the 90s, like, you know, the glory days are over, you know, kind of things from older musicians.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of like older working jaded musicians that I came into contact with in St. Paul, Minnesota.
I'm sorry to hear that. Brian says, my family thinks I'm successful because my band has been to Asia. Little do they know I have $84 in my checking account.
Honestly, sorry, Brian, that's like spot on though. And that's why I mentioned going around the world. Like we went to Asia and like played these crazy shows. And like for people looking from afar, seeing stuff on Instagram or something, they were probably like, oh shit. You know, that's real.
Totally.
Alberta68, you can play Arena on Mac, but you can't play Magic. You can't play this older thing on.
Whoa, Alberta68's in the chat.
Yeah.
Damn.
Who's that?
That's Will.
Oh,
Very
sick.
sick.
What's up, Will?
Very sick.
Will's he's speed running Minecraft these days. He's getting really good.
Will, your old manager? Will?
No.
Yeah. Will, a friend of mine that helped us like film some shit.
Oh, very.
Or some camera shit for something what we did.
Colin, you got anything for your boy?
I do. I have some questions, but before we do, so I know this episode's going to go a little longer than usual, but this one's particularly fun to me.
Okay.
So I want to ask Colin some questions that I'm curious about, but I feel like we should do round 1 of our famous game, Magic the Gathering card, or in this case, we have Philip Glass songs. And this
Okay,
is
cool.
fucking hard.
All right.
It's
Wow,
I think you'll do good though.
There's a couple albums I'm not familiar with though. But
There's-
okay, let's see.
I mean, okay,
There's a lot.
It's hard. All right, so we're gonna just go through these.
Dive. We're gonna dive right into it.
Okay, we're gonna dive down.
Let's dive down right into this. All right, first one, Hymn to Torok.
Wow, Hymn to Torok. That's really hard.
Right? Oh, Lucas, you're
Hymn to
keeping score,
Torok.
right?
Yeah, I'm keeping score.
Hymn to Torok. I would say Philip Glass song.
It's a magic card.
Wow. I don't think I've ever. That's an odd name for a magic card.
Oh, that's the theme I went with. I
It's
made
an
them.
old classic one.
It's a classic
Yeah.
card. Yeah, your opponent discards
Is that
2
a
or something.
is that a sorcery?
I think it's a
Yeah.
sorcery. Opponent discards 2
That
At
makes
random.
sense.
At
at
random.
random.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, Hydrogen Jukebox.
This is fucked up.
Yeah.
This is a fucked up game. Hydrogen jukebox. That maybe sounds like some weird vintage magic card.
Over
Say
to-
that's a
Wow.
that's a Philip Glass. It's a 1990 chamber opera with Allen Ginsberg.
Jesus Christ.
All right. Next up, we got Song of Serenity.
This is so fucked.
This is
Song of
hard. This is the
Serenity.
hardest one we've done. By the way,
This one
Colin.
I went extra hard because I knew Colin knew some magic cards, so I had to
Well,
go.
yeah, but there's like 5,000 magic cards.
And apparently 5,000 Philip Glass.
Yeah.
pieces.
There's a lot.
Song of what?
Song of Serenity.
Arrowhead saying MTG.
Arrowhead is right.
Nice.
Okay, a little
Thanks,
assist
Arrowhead.
there, but we'll count it. Up next, we have Waiting for the Barbarians.
That's a Philip Glass song.
It is a Philip Glass song.
Okay.
2005 opera.
I would have guessed Magic.
Right?
It's just like what would happen from the card Waiting for the Barbarians?
Yeah,
like
true.
The barbarians
You know.
will come.
I know, but like what would happen when you cast it?
It'd be like an enchantment where, like, you'd remove counters from it, and once it, over a course of a few turns, something like that.
Totally.
Okay, all right.
So next we have Entrancing Melody.
Magic card.
It's a magic card.
Nice.
All right.
That sounds like a magic card.
Totally. Up next we got Prelude to Endgame.
That's a Philip Glass song.
Yep, 2002 song from Nakoi Katsi.
That's one of the albums that I'm not familiar with. But every time it comes on, someone's playing it. I'm always like, "What are you listening to?" Ben
all right.
listens to that in the car a lot. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
Okay, Temple of Deceit.
Magic card.
Magic.
Very good. Very good.
That's a
White-
land.
It's a land. Yep, it's a scry land. Okay, White Raven.
Could go either way on this one.
Yeah, magic card.
Glass. 1998
Wow.
1998 opera. All right, Fabled Passage?
That's a magic land.
It's a magic land.
Yeah.
All right, last one we have here, another tough one. Deafening Clarion.
I don't know. What am I right now? This is the last one.
Good name for a song or a magic card. You've got 3 wrong out of however many we've done so far.
I think I'm 3 and 3.
I think you're 3 and 3.
3 and 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You've got 3 wrong and 6 right.
Oh, all right. Well, fuck it. Magic card.
Magic, correct. You got it.
All right.
Boros Sweeper.
I'm trying to imagine Carrie playing this game and just being.
Carrie got 10 out of 10 with Slipknot or Magic card. It was crazy. He nailed it, and I thought that we had a really hard list.
Wow.
Yeah, I think he just knew the Slipknot songs so well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask a couple questions.
Sure.
So, social media has kind of created this world where artists are constantly accessible, but then music demands this kind of like mystique from artists, So is playing Magic the Gathering live on Twitch really the kind of content fans want?
Is this a question specifically about DIIV?
I don't know.
To be honest, I feel like all bets are off now, and the rules are just like being reset because it partially having to do with the pandemic and like no one's playing shows, so like people are online more, but also having to do with like this weird like blurring of lines between like social media influencer, TikTok celebrity, and musician. Like I feel like so many people, I mean, especially with like pop music, but more than that too, like so many people are getting famous and then just like starting a band. And they're getting famous from being like really, really vulnerable and like stupid and, whatever online. Mm-hmm. And at a certain point, it doesn't really matter. I think like maybe more than maybe it mostly matters how you promote your actual art.
Right.
When you have
like
an
keep
album
them
that's
separate
coming
in
out.
some way.
Yeah, like, be funny and like quirky and like specific or unique on your social media because that's what people want to follow or whatever. But then at a certain point, like also like give due respect to the craft that you're making,
Totally.
Do you think there's now sort of this obligation where you can't just do the craft side? You also kind of have to have some sort of if you're an up and coming artist, like
yeah, I mean, I think like again, probably more often than not, it's good for you to have like a social media presence and like be really active because it just like proliferates your identity or like your existence.
Good for you business wise, but I find social media to be pretty emotionally taxing a lot of the time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I had like definitely had a moment when someone mentioned gardening with Colin.
Yeah,
which is my
love. Getting a lot of support in chat right now, which is nice.
Gardening. So I have this like gardening show that I did in the past, and still like I'll probably do another season or whatever. But I had like 2 seasons, and like I just found that like it was like pretty easy to get like a big response from people, and it was like going well. And I had this moment where I was like, oh, I think like becoming famous or whatever, or having like a lot of success with something on the internet, it's not that like there's only certain people who are, like chosen to get famous or something. A lot of times it just depends on like how much of yourself you're willing to sacrifice and like commit to doing the thing. And I definitely had a moment with that show where I was kind of just like, I have fun doing this, but I don't really want it to be like a thing that I like put a huge amount of myself and life into.
Right.
And that's with like a fucking fun show where I'm like outside gardening and stuff. It's like I can't imagine what it's like for like, like Twitch streamers playing like some video game like 12 hours a day to try to make it as like a streamer. And for me, that like, I don't know, maybe it's like partially living in LA now, but I just like enjoy like my life and like being alive as well. I don't want to like sacrifice that for, internet fandom, whatever that means.
Yeah, I feel like part of the appeal of the DIIV media empire and all its various facets. We've got
media moguls.
We've got the DIIV podcast. We've got Gardening with Colin. We've got Apocalyptic Sundries. We've got Thoughtseize interviews. All these things. I think it is us doing things that we enjoy doing anyway.
Yeah.
Did all the buzz about the Gardening with Colin show being an Illuminati thing, did that really take the wind out of your sails? I mean, the internet just blew up with the reaction, with basically
I couldn't believe that video.
Pretty much confirmed that that it's an Illuminati based show.
And True False Believers really exposed.
Oh yeah, Bailey's podcast. Yeah.
Yep.
No, I don't know what. Well, I moved. That's like a big thing.
That was a fake question, honestly.
I know. But I did
Bailey's video.
Just for the people watching who like that show. It's not like I'm like overdoing it. I just like moved, and also just something about like the pandemic and everything. I'm like more hesitant now to like be online, or like our lives are online now because of the nature of like quarantine, and like I'm already committing myself. So I don't really feel like committing myself even more to like creating content. Within reason, at least, because I like making the podcast. I like doing other shit. But yeah, I mean, getting back to your question or whatever, like, I think it just depends. Like, I think like authenticity is still really important, and like the notion of authenticity, I think, is changing with artists now. Where like before it was like, someone who was like committed to their craft and uninterested in fame or whatever. Now it's shifting where like you can be interested in fame, but like the authenticity of your like persona has to come across for people to buy it. So if you like are authentically like, I'm going to be famous and be a TikTok musician, like people will respond to it because you're being genuine.
Right.
But I don't think there's any forcing that. You know what I mean? I think you're supposed to just do what feels comfortable to you, and like, for a lot of people, like the music is enough,
For sure. So I guess real quickly, I wanted to, you've been described as being a very deliberate Magic player, which means you play the game very, very slowly. So how important, with that in mind, how important is optimal decision making in games and in life?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, optimal is a funny word.
Right.
Because like, yeah, I don't want to make the wrong decision. That extends to the way I think and like live my life for sure. Where I'm like, I don't make rash decisions very often. I'm not very spontaneous, which isn't to say that I'm like boring or something. I just like require like a switch to get flicked in my brain where I'm like, I'm going to do this now. And then like cutting my hair, I'll just like do it the next day or something, Right. But I think like, a lot of things in my past, like hindsight is 2020 or whatever. I feel like my takeaway from that is that a lot of like silly decisions I made at different points in my life, if I had just like taken a moment to think about what I was about to do, or actually like taking it in, I probably would have benefited from it. I feel like that's like a lesson that you learn as you get older. So like, totally. Yeah, Magic, average game for me, 30 minutes, 45 minutes.
You mean average turn?
Yeah, average turn. 30 minutes. That's funny. Yeah.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about your dad, Bill Caulfield, earlier.
Yeah.
But I have this
Great guy.
I have this theory just in general about, if a person is like musically inclined or a natural musician, it doesn't just come from nowhere. So like Lucas is a musician. Neither of his parents are like musicians, but there has to be something in there that like gave that to him.
Yeah.
And so your dad is, a huge music fan. I was wondering if you just wanted to talk about that, or if like other people in your family are musically inclined at all.
Yeah, my dad is like huge inspo for me, just in terms of like valuing music just in general. Like he would talk about bands and get like excited about them, and he would talk about shows that he went to see the Replacements a bunch of times before they were a big band, and like those are like cherished memories for him. And so his relationship with music is just like very personal. That's, I think, what I got from my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And then my really good friend Pat Kessler growing up, like one of my oldest friends, if not my oldest friend, him and I would just like sit at a radio and like listen to music together and like talk about it. I wish we had like a recording of what we were talking about, because at that point we weren't like, probably did not have much of a vocabulary for talking about music, but we would sit and for hours just like talk about the songs we were listening to. And then him and I started playing music together, and he was always like one step ahead of me taste wise, if not like two. So he was like exposing me to like weirder music, and he ended up switching schools and going to this art school. So I think, yeah, a combo of Pat and my dad was for sure the reason why I started paying attention, because I think that's actually what I'm like, that's like my strongest suit as like a musician, more than like technical ability, even though I could play a lot of stuff, is just that I'm good at like paying attention and like absorbing information from music.
For sure.
Attention to detail. That's another common thread that I've noticed, is there's usually a cool older guy or girl who's showing you, turning you on to shit,
Yeah, for sure.
In a lot of musicians' experience.
Okay, so this last question I wanted to ask is about, kind of like your process. And I know one thing that you've gotten really into recently is self-production.
Mm-hmm.
And like, how easy is this goal to attain, like for your average musician? And is it worthwhile for musicians in general to learn about self-production?
Yeah, that's a really big question. I think very much my answer is yes.
Yes, it's worthwhile.
But absolutely. There's a few caveats just in terms of like, like nowadays it's not just that like you can spend a couple $100 and have like a music interface and a microphone and some cables, and you can be basically like, and if you have like a software, like Logic and Pro Tools cost money, but like Ableton does too, but there are free ones. But anyway, the point of entry, nice.
Sorry, we've won.
The point of entry is like pretty inexpensive, and so like it's accessible in that regard. And then also with YouTube now, like literally anything you want to learn about when it comes to like technically doing things with music production or mixing or things like that, you can watch a video about it on YouTube. So I think the question more is like whether or not like you're able to balance your obsession with like music production with your obsession with making songs.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a really difficult thing to balance, because a lot of people just get a little lost in the sauce, myself included, where like I stop thinking so much about like the song that I'm making, and I start getting preoccupied with like what plugin I have on a track or something. And it's only until like kind of somewhat recently, in the past like year and a half or something, where I feel like I'm actually good about like just like doing things on autopilot now and not getting bogged down by stuff like that. So I can like, if I'm like, I want to make a song right now, I sit down and I can just like do it and not get distracted.
Can you talk a little bit more about that process?
About how I make a song?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, one thing that Cole, you and I have been doing lately is using these like templates, which is like when you open when you make a new project in Logic, you can start from a template, which is like a preset list of tracks or whatever. So it's like 2 vocals, drums, bass, 2 guitars or something. That's like a pretty standard like DIIV demo template. But then you can also have like the specific sounds. So if like one guitar is like distorted in a specific way, one guitar has a delay on it. It kind of like, if you find a template that you like, it kind of just nudges you in the right direction. So that's what I've been kind of obsessed with lately, is tweaking templates, because it saves so much time for me if I like go into the session and it already just sounds kind of cool, then I can just focus specifically on making the parts. So yeah, but the stuff I'm making lately for a DIIV, it's like usually just like make like a really simple drum beat and then come up with like a bass line and then just like jam with myself, which is like a thing that like a couple friends of mine talk about it that way. And like I had never really considered that you could just sit down and like jam with yourself, you know? And like, so in this setting, like you make a loop of something, drums and guitar, and then you just sit and you like play bass to it for like 45 minutes until you come up with a bass line, if it takes that long. So a lot of times I just do that, and I just try to like zone out, because I feel like something that people lose track of when they get into like technically learning an instrument, or they, you know, music becomes their job or something, is like you forget that, like you forget, not to be cheesy, but you like forget the reason why you started playing the instrument in the first place, which is to like enjoy it. Right. And like those times when I played piano when I was in college for 5 hours, like those are like that's like a happy space, you know? You start playing and you just kind of like you drift away, and you end up like finding these like, you know, new ideas that you wouldn't otherwise. And that's like such a nice thing that I've really started to like value more as I've gotten older.
Totally.
Is finding the moments where you're enjoying the process more.
Yeah, just trying to like allow myself to like sometimes I get really hung up. I'll go through phases where I get hung up, where I'll start something and I'll be like, this will never turn into a song, or like no one will ever like love this or something.
Sure.
But I've enough times I've like realized that like something that I didn't like just required like one tweaking of how I was approaching it, or like changing one part, and then all of a sudden 2 hours later the song is really good or something. And the way that I get there is by just kind of drifting off and like giving myself to the song a little bit, just like chilling with it, you know? But I think in terms of like how I practically do it, it's that, and then also just like listening to a lot of music, trying to listen like as much as possible, and trying to like sing along to different parts of songs. Like say you listen to a song like 20 times in a row or something, like I'll like whistle different parts. I'll try to pay attention. It's not like I'm going in and like figuring out what the notes are or something like that, but that kind of listening really just like seeps into my brain. And then when I sit down at Logic or whatever, it just kind of comes out, which is really, really fun.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have like a listening phase as part of your writing process.
Yeah.
Do you ever find that listening can be uninspiring, in the sense that you're maybe comparing yourself to the artist, or
I know you do, Lucas.
Yeah, I have a big listening phase, and then I have to stop after a certain point, you know, where I have to say like, okay, I have to make my thing now, and I can't keep listening to any. It doesn't matter who the artist is. I'm just going to compare myself to what I'm listening to, so I have to focus on my thing now.
I think like that definitely comes and has come for me in the past when I'm listening to music that is very similar to what I want to be making.
Sure.
That's like really difficult, because it's just not going to be like that, you know?
Right.
And the times where I get the most inspiration from music that I'm listening to is just by chance, when I'm just like really obsessed with something that is different than what I'm making. So like right now there's this dude, Chris Wiseman, who's like this amazing, pretty much unknown songwriter, kind of by his own choice, who just has his music about Bandcamp, and it's kind of like Elliott Smith vibe, all better recorded to tape. Really simple, but like amazing songs. Really out there music theory, and just kind of has this like really like playful, magical quality to it. And it sounds nothing like DIIV. But all the DIIV demos I'm making now, it's just like so much easier for me to like navigate, like coming up with a melody, or like it's just much more fun. I'm not getting like stuck where I feel like I have no ideas.
Sure.
So I think like,
yeah, Chris Wiseman music is full of ideas.
Yeah, it's insane. It's like just very few of the songs are the same. They're all just like these weird little like tone poems that he makes. It's really cool. But
it's an interesting. Keep going.
No, just like I would say like, yeah, if you're ever stuck and comparing yourself or what you make to something else too much, you just like shake it up and try to listen to something that's very different, because all music is similar, you know, even music that seems on surface like wildly different. There's a lot of similarities, and there's always something to learn. And a lot of like, I don't have an example right now, but I find when I read interviews from people, a lot of times references that a person will cite will sound nothing like what they make themselves, you know? They'll just be inspired by like a texture or a mood or atmosphere, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, I see it less as a problem or a thing that gets in the way so much as it's just like, okay, this listening time's done now. You know, it's time to move into writing time.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I could see that.
They work hand in hand, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I just separate the process, I think. That's why.
But I think one thing that Chris Wiseman dude does is like he sits down and he kind of like McCartney Lennon style will just like make the song. They didn't do all the recording at one sitting, but they would just sit down and write the song.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he does with his recordings, which that part, even though you don't have to do it in...
Sorry, we're going to get him so bad.
Even though you don't have to finish something right when you start necessarily, it's easy to, if you wait too long, to lose sight of what you want the song to be.
Yeah,
you
totally.
know what I mean? So that in that sense, like it's good at a certain point to stop listening and stop thinking creatively about what a song could be and just like actually execute it.
Yeah, write the song that you're writing.
That's right, Lucas.
Brian says that I only listen to GOAT artists and that I hate music that is just okay.
Liam F. Sully has a question for you and I, Cole.
Okay, cool. Let's go for it.
What's your question, Liam?
That's not your brother Liam, is it?
No. You have 5 seconds, Liam.
Your brother owes me a response. I sent him like 2 pages of text.
Okay, so while we're waiting for Liam F. Sully 2049's question that'll round out the show, why don't we just go straight into round 2 of Philip Glass song or MTG card?
Okay.
The final round.
Okay.
Colin's favorite Final Fantasy game is Final Fantasy VII, I think.
9.
You like 9? Okay.
9.
9's the one I'm playing.
Brian says that's the best one.
Yeah.
Yeah. 9's the best, I think, but I do believe that. Yeah. Anyway, we don't have to get into it.
Okay. So, all right, Liam F. Sully, we'll get to your question after this round of Philip Glass song or MTG card. All right. You ready? You ready, Colin?
Yep, I'm ready.
Keeping score, Lucas? Here we go.
Yep.
Primacy of Number.
That sounds like such a Philip Glass song because a lot of his music is so like geometric and like math sounding. Primacy of Number. We'll go Philip Glass.
Philip Glass, 2002 solo piano piece.
You skipped one there, Coley.
Oh, I got rid of that first one because I didn't know how to pronounce it, so I took it out.
Okay, alrighty.
Harmonize.
Harmonize. Magic card.
Magic card. All right. Shriekhorn.
Shriekhorn's a magic card.
Oh right, you used to play Dredge, huh?
Yeah.
Very good.
Fuck.
Very
Yeah.
strong.
Okay. That one seemed really hard, but I forgot you would know. Okay. The Fog of War.
Philip Glass.
Philip Glass, 2002.
Nice.
All right. Forbidden Orchard.
That's a magic card.
It's a magic card. Look at that. Perfect score so far. This one, I think this might be the hardest one. Omen of the Storm.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll say magic card.
It's a it's a Philip Glass song from King Lear, 2019. Okay. Omen of the Sea.
Oh my god, that's a magic card.
It's a magic card.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. And there's a whole Omen series. There's like Omen of the Forge, Omen of the
wow,
whatever the fuck.
Those two right in a row really broke my powers of deduction.
Yeah. Yeah. That's hard.
All right, we got
Really
three more.
Okay.
The Witches of Venice.
Witches of Venice. Philip Glass.
Philip Glass, 1997 Philip Glass Ballet. Liliana of the Veil.
That's a magic card. Come on.
Okay, all right. Just checking.
Planeswalker, right?
Planeswalker, double
Yeah.
black. Yeah. All right, last one. The Wind Catcher.
Philip Glass.
Philip Glass, 1992 Saxophone Sextet.
Nice.
Very good.
What do you think you got? How do you think you did, Colin?
I think I got 8 out of 10.
You got on this one. You got 9 out of 10.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
But
Nice.
your total score is 16 out of 20 , baby. That's
Damn.
real,
Not bad.
Real strong.
That's
Not
a B
bad at all.
minus.
Yeah,
minus.
definitely.
Strong.
Liam's asked their question.
Okay, cool. Let's hear it.
Liam F. Sully 2489 says, "Do you think it's fine to write a song from scratch on GarageBand?" I
Yeah.
absolutely think so, and I can't stress enough how you can legitimately record on GarageBand if you want. Alex G does that.
Yeah.
The Garden does that. A lot of bands who make music that I really love do that, and then you go find someone to mix it or something. But I think that there's you talked about authenticity or whatever. The most important thing is that the music you're making sounds like you, and that you believe in it or whatever when you're making it. These are vague ideas, but it is the most true, because a lot of songs that you think sound perfect, for example, if you go back and listen to them, or if you listen to the tracks isolated, if you do this with old Beatles recordings, some of those tracks sound so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So much noise, so much weird low end, all these things that you would think are wrong. It just works, and the sum total of all the parts is the song that you love. So it's important when you're making your own music, I think, not to get too bogged down by not having the right gear, or about one element of your song sounding like shit or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think something really beautiful that's happened recently is just the total democratizing of these once inaccessible music making tools, so
Right.
there's just, you can just it used to be the guitar was the anybody can play guitar
Yeah.
kind of thing, and now it's just almost everybody has some kind of access to a computer that they can use to record music on, and it's opened up all these new otherwise would be non-musicians to being able to make great music with all these really really intensely designed elements. It's brought the
Totally.
studio just into your house or whatever.
Yeah, because all melodies have been written, they say, or whatever. Most songs have been written at this point. So now it's just it mostly comes down to the way that you execute or interpret the idea that you have that's floating around in like the legacy of music and musical tradition or whatever. So you have an idea for like, oh, I have these chords and this melody. It might have existed before, or someone in another country somewhere might be having the same idea at the same time. But like the like really defining element of it is like how you record it and how you express that idea. And like that doesn't require like expensive equipment or anything like that. It just requires like you pressing record on some shitty device, you know?
Yeah. Right. I mean, Phoebe, who we had on the show recently, doesn't, I mean, almost all of her demos are literally she just tracks them on her phone.
Yeah, like phone memos.
Yeah. Well, because like you know, you have like an idea, and in the moment you have to like capture it. Like that's like Tom Waits is all about that, right? Mm-hmm. He talks about how it's like the muse will come and he has to like just grab it before it's gone. And if he doesn't catch it, it is gone. And that really is how it feels. Like you just kind of like, I mean, that's why more than anything, they suggest that you like, if you're a songwriter, you try to write every day and like put in the work, because it's not necessarily that you're going to get better over time, and you probably will, but it's more just like, you know, it's like a probability game. You just sit down and you like try over and over. You're bound to like come up with something that you're into, you know?
It's a really good way to describe it. I really like that a lot, actually.
It helps to think about that, because like it can get really demoralizing when you sit down for the third day in a row or something and everything you're making sounds stupid.
Yeah. In that, someone gave me a book on songwriting once, and they made it was super corny, and they gave me there's a corny analogy in there too, where it's like the Romeo and Juliet balcony, and how you have to show up, you know, you have to show up every night to the balcony just to see if she's there, you know. Oh my God. But that's a cornier version of what you just said, where it's like you don't know if the thing's going to show up, but the more often, it's a probability game, the more often you show up for that thing to arrive, you know, the more likely you are.
And I fully agree with that too. Like, you know, I think a lot of times when we're going through, you know, a lot of times our band will just like take stock of all the demos we've sent back and forth. And sometimes, you know, I'll look at some of the best ones that I made, and they'll be like all in one day.
Yeah.
You know, like two of my favorite songs from one day. I'm like, damn, good thing I sat down and recorded music on that day. Otherwise I would.
Yeah, exactly. Shit. Because it's not like it's not like those songs like exist in some place. They're like they're like the product of like circumstance. Like you sitting down. Like if you had sat down the next day, there's literally nothing guaranteeing that you would have an idea even like remotely similar to what you put down. You know. Mm-hmm. Which is like, yeah, I think one thing that helps me in like being a songwriter or whatever, working on music, is rather than getting like bummed out when things aren't going your way, try to just like appreciate like the bizarre like mystery of making music. It's like, oh, nice job, Cole. But it's just like, it's so strange, you know, this idea that you can like listen to music, learn an instrument, and then make your own song. And it just like, a lot of times like you legitimately kind of like black out while you're making it, you know?
Totally.
And then you come to your senses and it's just like there, you get into a flow or whatever. And like, that is really what's most enjoyable for me, more than like, or I try to focus on that rather than thinking about like whether or not I'm making something that's like good, you know?
But then there is the opposite approach. I think when we're collaborating, it's like, you'll have that kind of like thing where you just are like inspired in the moment, record something, and it exists, and then there's this kind of like systematic, like methodical approach that will go like taking stock of everything again and like analyzing it, and like, okay, this could be better, this part doesn't work here, and it's like a combination of those things. You know, I think you don't want to give the impression that making music is just like you either are inspired or you're not. You know, it's like a combination of both of those things, you know?
True. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good clarification. I think like the ideas always start from a spontaneous moment, but then like, yeah, so much of music and making songs is like work in that sense, where you're like sitting down and like organizing and like, drafting lyrics and like, yeah, that's true. I guess I forget about that part because it's felt like it's been a long time because we're like not in the same place. You know what I mean?
Right.
So just me with my old guitar here.
It is fun though, writing DIIV songs with you in general, but it's been fun just like sending like MP3s on text back and forth.
Yeah, it's cool. Especially because like I feel like when you and I send each other an idea, it's like really it's just like, oh, this is cool. Like look what I made.
Yeah, I'm always surprised by what you come up with. It's like sometimes there will be a song that feels like there's only one direction to go. I'll have like a chord progression and I'll have tried a vocal melody a million times and I'm like, there's only one option. And then you'll send something and just like break it in this cool way. So yeah, it's been pretty exciting collaborating with the boys, even though we can't be in our nice practice space that we pay $600 a month for.
True. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's probably like, at least in terms of like the music we're making, I try to think that it is maybe like some sort of blessing in disguise, or there's at least like a silver lining in terms of us like, I'm getting much, much better at writing and playing music because of quarantine. Because I just have, it's not even that I practice all the time. It's just like I have so much more free time close to an instrument. So I end up picking it up a lot more, Right. And so because of that, yeah, like I feel like I'm actually excited about shit that we're going to make in the future. Because I think it's like the product of just something different, which, it can be nice. You don't want to make the same album or make music the same way all the time. You got to shake it up.
Totally.
I think that's a great place to end things.
Yeah, Lucas, you got anything? You got any other questions? Or are you good?
No, I think this was awesome. We went a little longer than usual, but I'm glad we did. Liam says thank you in chat for answering his question.
Yeah, thanks for engaging with us, Liam. It's really nice to have the interaction in the chat. I think that's part of why we do this live. Just to like involve you a little bit.
That's right.
And for real, and I'm we get to do this like long format thing, which is kind of we get to do the dive down. Get to dive down deep.
Yeah. No, I'm really happy that it went a long time. This is just us chilling, hanging out.
Yeah, I miss you guys.
Talk about music. This is how it should be. Talking about me.
Right.
Talking about me for an hour and a half. All right. Well, respect, guys. Thank you so much. I was happy to be on the show.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, Colin. Love you.
What was the? Finally, sorry, Lucas. But what was the final win count?
Oh yeah. How'd you do?
How'd we do the win count for games?
Oh, for the games. Damn, we did good. I think we went 4-1.
Yeah.
Wow.
This deck, I mean, honestly, for like I think the rule in Magic generally is that the more mana a card costs to play, the more powerful it is. And this plays the cheapest and most easily castable cards in the game. And so you'd think it would be like very low power, right? But it did surprisingly well, and I'm impressed. And I'm glad I got to play it because this is kind of my style of Magic a little bit too. You play the tempo game.
That's right.
Yeah.
Highly interactive.
Tempo strategy.
Sick.
So anyway, yeah, thank you, Colin, so much for coming on. Next week we have a very special guest that we shouldn't announce yet in case they cancel, but next week will be great. And listen to the DIIV podcast that came out today featuring me and Colin and Bailey and Ben as well from the DIIV Media Empire. Thank you all.
Thanks for hanging out, and thanks to Deranged Strangler for our intro song and outro track.
Right on. Good night, everybody.